Hi everyone and welcome back. Today we're doing the last of the RO exams, which is R06 Financial Planning Practice. This is the last of the RO exams and is a level 4 exam, so you need it to become a qualified financial advisor. It's 100 study hours for 30 CII credits, and I'm afraid this one is a written exam based on case studies that are released 2.5 weeks before you sit the exam. So no more multiple choices, I'm afraid, everyone. This is a written exam, so it's going to rely on you being able to take in and recall information on your own, just with the prompt of a question. So I'm afraid there will be no multiple choice questions, no choices of answers. You will have to regurgitate the information that you know yourself. So this can be a bit tricky because all the other exams up to this point have been multiple choice. So this is certainly one you need to do a lot of preparation for. Now this tests the practical application of technical knowledge and planning skills already gained, typically through the study that you've already done, and therefore it supports the provision of competent and appropriate advice, which is obviously so important when you're becoming a financial advisor. And as I've said, it's the final unit needed to achieve the diploma in regulated financial planning, bringing together all the knowledge that you've already got through the previous 5 units. You cannot achieve your level 4 qualification or apply for your SPS, your Statement of Professional Standing, without a pass in the R06 to complete your diploma. Now, if you don't have your SPS, your Statement of Professional Standing, which has to get renewed every year, then you can't practice as a financial advisor. So you must have this qualification, you must have this exam completed successfully to be able to qualify and get your SPS. The biggest challenge of this exam is that it's not made up of multiple choice questions and answers. All you get is questions and a blank screen to type your answers on. Pre-COVID, this was a written exam, and certainly when I did it, it was handwritten in a primary school on tiny chairs and tiny tables, and my handwriting is not the best. But with COVID and everything else that's been going on, you can do this remotely and you can do it as a typed exam. This can take some getting used to and lots of practice on question and answering techniques, some of which I'll go through later. But first of all, let's just talk about the learning objectives. Now, actually, there are not many of these because it's quite it's a broad exam. It's going to cover everything you've already learned. So the learning objectives are quite broad. So let me just go through those for you now. Learning outcome number 1 is to obtain appropriate client information and understand clients' needs, wants, values, and a risk profile essential to the financial planning process. Learning outcome number 2, synthesize the range of client information, subjective factors, and indicators to provide the basis for financial planning assumptions and decisions. Learning outcome number 3, analyze a client situation and the advantages and disadvantages of appropriate options. Learning outcome number 4, formulate suitable financial plans for action and explain and justify recommendations. Learning outcome number 5, implement, review, and maintain financial plans to achieve the client's objectives and adapt to changes in circumstances. So as I said, it's quite a broad subject there. You've got a lot of areas to take into account, and that's why there's only 5 very broad learning objectives for this particular exam. So let's talk about exam preparation now. So really you can split this into 2 sections: what you can do before you have seen the case studies and what you can do after you've seen the case studies, because you only get them 2.5 weeks before the actual exam. But obviously you can't leave it 2.5 weeks before the exam before you start any of your preparation for it. Now, this is not an easy exam. The national pass rate fluctuates year on year and has recently been as low as 67% in 2019. And the CIO recommend 100 study hours for this exam, which is twice as many as for R03. So you can really see why it needs to be, one that you really spend your time delving into and getting to know. As I said, you can't leave all your preparation until 2 weeks before the exam and expect to pass. So what can you do to prepare in the meantime? Obviously, there are things you can do to prepare beforehand. First of all, get the textbook and study the text. You have no choice but to purchase it as part of your exam enrolment. So when you do get that textbook through, have a read through it more than once, get a feel for the sort of information you'll be expected to learn, and revise the core technical knowledge areas from across your previous diploma syllabuses. As you work your way through the study guide, make a note of any gaps in your knowledge, but really if you've been doing most of the other RO exams quite recently, hopefully it will still be fresh in your mind and you'll be able to recall a lot of that knowledge that you've already obtained. Ask yourself how confident you are in each of the areas that might come up, and if there are gaps that you know that you need to fill, then this is the time to revisit your old study guides. You don't want to wait until you see the case studies to realise that you have gaps that have appeared in your knowledge since you last did previous exams. So just as a refresher, the core units in the diploma are R01, Financial Services Regulation and Ethics, R02, Investment Principles and Risk, R03, Personal Taxation, R04, Pensions and Retirement Planning, and R05, Financial Protection. So you can expect most of those areas to come up in R06. So one thing I definitely recommend is that you attempt as many past papers as possible. you can access the full examiner's report for each of the papers from the previous 4 sittings on the CII website. So go to the CII website, R06, and then down the right hand side you'll be able to see past papers and the case study analysis that you can have. You can also purchase analysis from companies to help you interpret the exam case studies once they've been released. Ensure you use one that's written by a company with a proven track record in this area to make sure you successfully complete the exam. This should include the types of questions that may be asked once the case studies have been released, along with model answers based on the case studies and the questions that you could expect to come up. And it should also help with generic questions that often come up, including product areas and technical knowledge, as well as with exam technique and analysis of past papers in terms of types of questions asked. But most importantly, you need to ensure that your general knowledge is up to speed, especially in the subject areas that are covered in the case studies. So make sure you look at those case studies closely and really closely when you get them through. Now there is a new element, the R06 post-case study video technical guide. If you do want further support to help you prepare for the R06 exam, you can purchase a video guide a few weeks before each exam sitting. This is available on Revision Mate. This is a revision course that covers the main areas of knowledge that might be applicable based on the case study released for each exam, and it's only available for that particular session. So details such as pricing are available on the video guide shop page when the product goes live, which is only once the case studies have been released. Now I didn't have that when I did the exam, so I'm not sure how beneficial that is going to be. I can't comment on it, unfortunately. I didn't have that element of support. I just had the R06 study guide. I did purchase a package from a well-known company that does things like this, and I did find it very helpful because they helped me to swot up on what was probably going to come up in the exam, and I did find that very helpful. But as I said, I haven't done the video one, so I don't know how helpful that will be. Now the exam itself is a 3-hour exam which comprises of 2 written case studies on financial planning practice, which you will get 2 weeks before the exam sitting. The nominal pass mark is 55%, and the 2020 pass rate was 78%. So actually, I think that's pretty good. You can currently choose to sit the exam remotely or in an exam centre. So that is still currently the case with COVID still floating around, but it's just such a different exam to all the other RO exams. And you must include studying the CII exam guides, the past papers, and the past analysis as part of your preparation. I cannot emphasise how key that will be in just learning what you can expect to happen in the exam. This will give you a good feel for the style of questions that you're likely to get asked, and I can tell you now some typical questions that are likely to be included. Fact-finding questions, for example, what further information would you require to advise the client on the suitability of their current investments? You can also get asked advisor questions, so what factors should an advisor consider when reviewing the client's pension arrangements and things like that. Analysis of products and technical questions. They're usually worded such as explain why or comment on or state the advantages and disadvantage of or recommend and justify, all those sorts of questions. You need to make sure that you read and reread each question carefully before you answer it. Most candidates who do not pass R06 tend to miss by only a few marks, and so don't waste time not answering the question you are being asked, because those few marks can be vital in getting you over the pass mark. One thing that's really important to flag up to you all is the inevitable curveball question that you'll likely get in the exam. Probably around 1 or 2 that seem completely unrelated to the client's aims, but don't be thrown by this. Draw on your knowledge and your experience of what is being asked. The exam is positively marked again, so there's no risk in writing down as many bullet points as you can, even if you're not sure if your answer is correct. The only caveat is that you must ensure none of your points conflict with each other, because they can get discounted then in the marking process. Now, how you answer the questions is also very important in terms of answering technique. So the number of marks available next to each question tells you how much time to spend on each answer and how many points you should be making. There's a total of 150 marks available, so allowing about a minute a mark is a good guide, with some time at the end to check over your work. This is essential to gain the odd mark that you might have previously missed, just to sneak in a bullet point somewhere, or if you realise you've got conflicting bullet points, just going through and making sure that everything is as you want it to be. Always try and put down more answers than the marks that are available. It's not negatively marked, as I've previously said, so you will not lose anything by having a wrong answer written down, unless obviously it's conflicting with something else you've already written. Use bullet points to get your answers down as quickly as possible and to maximise the number of marks you can gain in the time available, and leave space between your answers so you can go back and add further points later. But a lot of that will be explained when you first get the paper and you sit the exam. Make sure you spend time looking at the model answers given in the CII exam guides to understand exactly what the examiners are looking for when they ask specific questions and how they're expecting you to answer them. The R06 exam is only sat a couple of times a year. The next ones coming up are the 5th of July 2022, which you need to book on by the 21st of June, and the 28th of September 2022, which you need to book on by the 14th of September. Results are received 6 weeks after the exam sitting. I hope that's been helpful, guys, and I wish you all the best of luck whenever you're sitting your R06 exam. But fingers crossed you will pass and you can finally achieve your diploma in financial planning.